Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Along with me today, the one and the only Mark Cook, also from pewterreport.com. No Scott Rounds today. Has been suspended from the podcast for too much love for one Blaine Gabbert, who isn't even a Buccaneer right now, Mark. I mean, you've worked with him a long time. Is this the lowest of the lows for him?
You know, I thought it was bad when he was in love with Ryan Suckup, but Ryan proved to be a valuable addition to this football team. As much as I love Blaine, I have a Blaine Gabbert story. I don't know. Should I tell the Blaine Gabbert story later in the show?
Yes, it's a storytelling week on the podcast, right. So you can tell it later in the show if you want.
I've got a classic Blaine Gabbert story, and it revolves around Copenhagen long cut, so I'll leave it at that. But got a good story for that a little bit later in the show.
I also have not told the Devin White story yet, and no one has asked for it, so I'm putting myself back on the block to tell the Devin White story today as well on the podcast. So we got story time coming up on the podcast again from both of us. We've also got to talk about Joel Glazer, his comments to the media actually just before we got on here to go live. So he talked about the 2021 season, return to normalcy in the cards, maybe that could include minicamp. We talked about he talked about Tom Brady and the difference that he's made. We'll talk about all of that on the show, and a little bit about the Bucs creamsicle uniforms too, Mark, so we can have some momentum in that direction too. So we've got a lot of that to talk about, and then obviously pro days. We're going to keep updating you on pro days and talking about Bucs related prospects and what's been going on lately with them. And it's all brought to you by our friends over at Celsius.
Celsius. John, I was going to say right before we got on the podcast, I was doing every one of those exercises you just saw in that video. Everyone, and I was wearing those tights that girl was wearing. So,
wow, that is not exactly what I wanted.
Because I was drinking Celsius. Without this, I could have not done those exercises.
It's literally miraculous, and it powers active, healthy lives every day with essential, functional energy. I've got the Grape Rush going on today. What'd you have there?
I have my favorite, the sparkling sparkling grapefruit today.
Oh, sparkling grapefruit, good one as well. I haven't actually had the sparkling grapefruit. I've heard good things about it from listeners and such. But yeah, so Celsius, I'm telling you, it is amazing. I mean, the fact that this stuff tastes as good as it does, this healthy energy, accelerates metabolism, burns body fat, comes in a ton of different flavors. I mean, it's great stuff. And again, it gives you the energy you need without the letdown, without any of that. Couldn't ask for a better product. Couldn't ask for a better sponsor from the Pewter Report podcast. And yeah, you can go to the Celsius.com, check out the store, check out what the different flavors are, where you can get Celsius near you. And if you just want the variety pack, you wanted a bunch of different flavors, go to Amazon.com. Check out that Celsius on Amazon. You can get the variety pack ordered to your home as well. It's great stuff. We use it every day, and we love it.
And I like to drink it out of my my new cup that I got here too from one of our other sponsors.
Ooh, little Playbook Products plug.
Yes. Which cup? Which play did you get on yours?
I got the Scotty Miller touchdown right before halftime. That's what you got to. Yeah.
Brilliant. Great product. Follow us on Twitter. You can see more about the this product as well. I don't know that they're a podcast sponsor, but I like to give shout outs to everybody.
They are. Yeah. We talked about Playbook Products on Monday. They got a sale going on too right now. So make sure you go check out playbookproducts.com and pick yourself up some cool Buck stuff as well. They got coasters and mugs as well. So it's good stuff. All right, Scott. All right, Mark. I almost called you Scott. Sorry about that.
You're suspended now.
Now
I'm doing the podcast by myself. So you're out. See you later, John.
We got to talk about this Joel Glazer thing. Okay. So he's talking about the 2021 season, and he's saying return to normalcy. Those are exciting words for everybody. I mean, just normalcy in general, man. I mean, be awesome. But yeah, return to normalcy for this upcoming season, especially for somebody like you who's covered the team boots on the ground for years. That has to be a pretty exciting thought.
No, it really is. You know, it's people. I don't know how many people, and John, you've probably gotten this a lot of people ask me all the time, what's Tom Brady like? What's Rob Gronkowski like? What's Antonio Brown like? I don't know. I mean, I know as much as you do, unfortunately. I know them from Zoom calls because
Right.
that's just been the world that we've lived in the media world. And, I know that you went to a couple games at the stadium this year when you got moved down here, and Scott went to all the home games. I didn't go. Mainly, the main reason was, other than my fear of elevators that we all know about, even though we would be in the stadium in the press box, all of the player availability, the media availability was still done via Zoom. So you guys watched the game in the press box, but it was the same if I were at home or in the press box as well. I like to watch my games without any pants on. So I could do that at home, not in the press box, which is nice. But and there's some advantages to being in the press box, but not the normal advantage that we have because, after a game, normally, just to let people know, when the game is over, we usually go down right after the game. There's a 15-minute mandatory cooling off period that the NFL mandates before teams are allowed to open up the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
That's so after a tough loss, somebody doesn't, scream obscenity. Sometimes that still happens, but it was probably a smart thing the league did, not just open the locker room immediately since guys are coming off the field in the heat of battle. And the locker room would be open as we're milling around and talking to players as they're getting dressed, undressed, going in the shower, coming out of the shower. Then we have an opportunity. The PR staff, the public relations, not the Peter Port staff, but the public relations staff will go around and say, "Hey, Jameis is going to be at the podium." Well, this year it would have been Tom's going to be at the podium, or Bruce, whichever one was first. Normally, coach is first, then the quarterback. Unfortunately, that just didn't happen this year. So, getting back to what you originally said, the normalcy, which will be nice to be able to maybe. And I've talking to people in the organization, they still have no idea how the season's going to work out. They can open things back up potentially for the media, but here's the deal, John. Our media room at One Buccaneer Place is a meeting room for the quarterbacks right now. So it's possible that Tom Brady sat in my seat, at my desk. Probably not. It was probably Blaine Gabbert, but it was maybe Tom Brady. Who knows? Bottom line is even if the media is back allowed inside the building, and again, it may come down to, do you have a vaccination? What's the overall positivity rate in the area? There's so many factors that will go into the decision by the NFL, and the Players Association has a say-so in this as well, because again, it's them that's going to be, affected if somebody came in with COVID. I've also learned that and I say learned, it's out there, but speaking to somebody in the organization, there's not going to be a forced vaccination for the players. That's just not going to be the case. I mean, to me, it would be nice if they said, okay, everybody has to be vaccinated, employees and all players, coaches, and media who's going to go in. In that case, then nobody has to worry about it. But I understand people can make personal choices about their body. I respect that completely. I'm personally going to get vaccinated. I know some people aren't. That's fine. No need to argue about it. But, but the bottom line is, so that our media room, even though it may be back more open, they may have to put us a media trailer outside. Chances are we are still not going to be back in our media room talking to somebody in the organization. Again, things are fluid. Things could change. But normalcy, anything better than last year will be getting step by step closer to normalcy, and we'll see what it ends up being. But I'm hoping to be able to be back at One Buccaneer Place. People think, John, working from home is great, and there's a lot of people listening that have worked from home, and there's a lot of advantages. Don't get me wrong, but for somebody like me who can't stop talking, as you're noticing right now, that human interaction, it really is a need that people have. You know what I mean? It's an inherent need inside of us to have, human reaction, interaction. I mean. And there's only so many times I can go walk the dogs or talk to my girlfriend or whatever. I'm a social person. Even though people think I'm a grumpy ass, I still like to interact with people. So I'm personally looking forward to it. So anyway, sorry about that long answer.
No, for sure. I agree. I think that it's going to be a big change. And the other thing that is for players is going to be a big change, especially undrafted guys, rookie free agent guys. I mean, that's a big deal if you can get mini camp back and get a chance to impress. I mean, remember last year, they're going in cold into camp. I mean, they don't have the rookie mini camp or the mini camp or the OTAs or all that kind of stuff to get them warmed up.
There's not gonna be on the field. I again, talking to some people and even some stuff that's being reported right now, the NFLPA, they want to do a virtual off-season program again, and that's the way it's probably going to end up being. The question is, when training camp starts, I don't know that they're going to open it up to fans like we've had in years past. That would be great because I know, just like us, we would love to interact with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and things like that. Right. And another thing, John, a lot of people can't afford to go to games. So their training camp time was their opportunity to bring their kids out, their whole family out, and see the Buccaneer players up close in person. So I'm hoping it'll get to that point. But from what I understand from talking to people is the off season is going to be virtual, which means there's going to, just like last year, these rookies are going to miss out on the field live reps.
Well, I mean, there were reports today that it sounded like they were going to maybe start a little bit of that, but that the NFL didn't plan on the whole thing being virtual like last year, that the workouts and all of that. So, I mean, I think we're moving in the direction toward those things coming back, but it depends a lot about how the next 2 months go. There's no question about that. So we'll see, but that would be the key thing to me in the aspect of the offseason for players is getting that time back to be able to get out on the field in some capacity and do some stuff. But again, like with the next 2 months, like Joel Glazer said today, it's going to be fluid. There's going to be a lot of that stuff that we've kind of got to adjust to and figure out what's going on in the whole world, really. And then obviously as it relates to the NFL side of things too. He also talked about the creamsicle jerseys, Mark. And where do you fall on this creamsicle jersey thing?
John,
I want to see the fans happy. I don't really
care. John, I'm a 90. I call myself a 76er. That's not quite accurate. I didn't start watching this football team until 1977 when I was 7 years old. So the creamsicle is near and dear to my heart. You've heard the stories. I've written about it before. I literally had Buccaneer clothing since I was a kid with Bucco Bruce on it, orange. I'll never forget getting the Sears catalog and ordering pajamas, the footy pajamas at that, with an orange terry cloth robe in like 1979. I mean, I was decked out in the Bucco Bruce. That's what I grew up on. That's what I love. I understand there's an entire generation that has never seen that uniform as a primary uniform. But I love it. And I tell you, it's become nostalgic, even to the point where players, by the time the Buccaneers got rid of it, guys like Warren Sapp, they didn't want to see any more orange. But even Warren Sapp, as Scott pointed out in his Fab, I believe last week when with an interview with Warren, talked about that, how, he misses that. And he relates a great story about Rondé Barber, really going to the Glazers in 2009, I guess it was, and pushing them to bring back, the old uniforms, because he came the year after they changed to the new ones, and so we never had an opportunity to play in them. So it's become a nostalgic type thing too. So I'm all for it, whatever we can do. I would have loved to have incorporated a little of that in the new design, but they didn't. That's okay. But if we can get one game a year as a throwback, I would love it. But that, again, I'm also old, so that's why I feel that way.
All right, thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat for whether you like the creamsicle idea, those uniforms coming back. Obviously, there are policies with the league that the Bucs are trying to get them, and probably the Bucs are not the only team, I'm sure, trying to get the leagues to budge on.
There's a lot of teams in the mailbag a couple weeks ago. That was a big question, and I listed some of the other teams that would really like to be able to do that again. The Titans, for instance, they have the dark blue helmet, right? Or do they have a white helmet? They used to have white. I don't know. I think they're wearing a dark blue helmet now, but they can't do the old Houston Oilers thing. Remember, they moved from Texas to Nashville. So there's a lot of teams out there that would love to be able to have a 2-helmet rule. In other words, an alternate type helmet to be able to change up and do the throwback. And it's a revenue generator. So, the owners would love to do it personally.
Yeah.
I mean,
because people buy those jerseys and stuff.
Yep. There'll be a lot of people. And the Buccaneer team store carries a few things in the old creamsicle, but they would really have an explosion of sales, in my opinion, if they were able to do the throwback thing for sure.
Well, I mean, about or anything, people go crazy. They love the jersey conversation, and I get it. I mean, that aesthetic, I'm a big aesthetic guy. So I understand that. I don't think their jerseys, those creamsicles, are the prettiest jersey per se, or the best looking, but I do value the historical significance and kind of the nostalgia that you're talking about that comes from wearing a jersey like that. It's a great change of pace jersey. I would love to see it come back in that capacity. I'm glad it's not their full jersey, their full-time jersey. But
and you know what? It pays tribute to people. People laugh about the Buccaneer Bruce thing because people relate it to the 0-26 start. But if you're going to do that, you have to relate it to the 1979 team that after just 4 years in its expansion team, made it to the NFC Championship game, beat the Eagles, lost 9-0 to the Rams in the championship game. The 81 team that made the playoffs, the 82 team in the strikes shortened year that had to win 4 games in a row to qualify for the playoffs, including a season finale, exciting overtime win against the Chicago Bears, 26-23 with a Bill Capice field goal in overtime. I remember those games, and they were in orange. But also the years after that, where guys gave their heart and soul to this team, as a guy like James Wilder, who never really he saw the playoffs in 82, but that was it for him. And he toiled in mediocrity and anonymity, if that's the right word, for years in that uniform. And I think it pays a respect to those guys that paved the way, whether they had great success in them or not. I think it honors the past Buccaneers, and I think it's important to do that 1 week out of the year at the least.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. The Long Lost Glazer says the Bumblebee Steelers jerseys are terrible. Yeah, they're not my favorites either. For a while, they played really well whenever they wore them, so it's kind of like that. You wanted them to wear them for that reason, but they're definitely not my favorites. Packers have like some horrible throwbacks. I mean, just like brown pants, and they're awful.
Terrible.
But again, like I like just seeing different, and I love what were the Color Rush jerseys? I was probably one of the only people that loved the Color Rush jerseys when they were doing those on Thursday nights. I thought they were sweet. Not all of them look good. I just like seeing a different jersey, to be honest. I think I'm pretty much always a fan of a different jersey, even if I don't like the aesthetic part of it. I like the fact that they do it anyway. So we'll see what direction things head in if they're able to get those creamsicles. I remember Tom Brady commented on Instagram a month ago, maybe it was after the Super Bowl, and he was like, need to find a way to get these back. And
he sells a TB12 orange shirt. I mean, that's in his catalog. By the way, those shirts are $40 a piece. That's why I haven't ordered one yet. But
wow.
Yeah, he's getting a pretty penny.
Maybe when you get in the locker room this year, you can see if TB will hook you up a little bit.
I'm just going to grab one.
He has been sitting in your chair this whole time. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, he better not leave any trash on any TB12. Well, you know what? I take that back. If he wants to leave some of the product there, some protein powder, some minerals, vitamins, I'm all for it. So
yeah, that's
again,
true.
I have a feeling it's Blaine Gabbert who's been in my chair this whole time.
Oh, you think he's been in your chair?
Yeah. Looking for some old Copenhagen. Yeah.
Have you seen this yet? I know I'm holding a DVD and people are like, what's that? Yes, I watched it. This is the Bucs Super Bowl DVD. I watched it, by the way, and I thought of it because somebody said bring back the alarm clock jerseys. My wife and I, Britt and I were watching the Bucs DVD of this past season, and we were talking about how their uniforms are just awesome. I mean, all pewters are great. I just love their uniforms in general now. But I really think the alarm clock jerseys were maybe one of the worst uniforms in NFL history, maybe ever. It may be the worst in NFL history for a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons is obviously the alarm clock numbers, the reasons everybody talks about. And I don't know if people talk about these or not because I wasn't around when they were wearing them like I am now, but the orange like striping like that they have, I mean, just horrendous to me. Like, why in the world would you put orange with like,
again, they were trying to appease the old people like me by giving a hint of the old color.
But that made it worse, right? Like,
no,
to
I
me,
agree.
that would have made it way worse.
I agree. I could have lived with those uniforms except the number design, which was just ridiculous. Again, I'm a fan of the classic. You know what? I love Florida State. Everybody knows that. I love their uniforms. I hate when they change and go to an alternate uniform. I like the classic garnet and gold. But I'm a fan of like Penn State, Notre Dame's uniforms. They've been the same essentially since the beginning of time. Again, you guys can tell I'm an old, what do you call old people? Boomers? I don't know. My son calls me weird names all the time, but I like the old, just classic, clean look. And those uniforms wouldn't have been the worst, except that just why they thought that those number designs were going to be. I mean, maybe they were trying to be futuristic. I don't know what happened, but that was just a terrible, terrible decision.
Trevor and I, when we would be on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, we would talk about uniforms for like whole shows at some time. People have such strong opinions. It always cracks me up. You can see that in the comments.
John, one of our top stories last year.
Yes, I think it was our top story.
I think it was, what could the Buccaneers uniforms possibly look like? And our good friend Sammer from Loose Cannons, actually, he's a great graphic designer, came up with some prototypes, and people went crazy. So you're right, man. Uniform questions, uniform discussion. You can never go wrong with that. Everybody has an opinion.
I love it. I love that it extends. I think a lot of topics that weren't like on field related, people we would get yelled at.
Who cares about 12 personnel? Damn it! Are they wearing Bucco Bruce this year?
What are they wearing for their jerseys? That definitely is part of it. All right. So we also heard from a man named Leonard Fournette, as we call him on this podcast. Leonard. We heard from Leonard on the podcast or on the media availability today, and he talked about Antonio Brown. We got to talk about him, man, because
John,
man,
he's just misunderstood. Antonio Brown's misunderstood. I would say that he's not understood. There's a difference between misunderstood, because I don't understand Antonio Brown. I understand nothing about this guy. I met Antonio Brown the first time at the first year the Pro Bowl was in Orlando. And first of all, I didn't realize how small of a guy he was. Again, you can't tell just watching somebody on television until you see him in person without a uniform and shoulder pads and things like that. It was crazy. First time I met him, one of the nicest guys in an interview. I was totally surprised. I expected, receivers tend to be prima donnas, but he was jovial. He was nice. He was answering all the questions. So I had no idea that the man was a complete nut. And we've learned that since then. And but Leonard said he's misunderstood. I tend to say he's just not understood. There's a big difference between the two. But Leonard knows him better than you and I do.
Right. I mean, I think, Leonard's obviously entitled to his experience, but he has to understand it's anecdotal, and it doesn't take away from the bigger picture with a guy like Antonio Brown. Obviously, it is. I mean, I do appreciate Leonard's transparency just in general about himself. And, I said this before he re-signed that I really think for Leonard, there's like an emotional layer to this, and he really exposed that today too, and made me look actually smart for saying that, because I think this was really an emotional decision for him. He said he could have gotten more money elsewhere. I think professionally speaking, he probably should have gone elsewhere. I don't think the Bucs are going to stay with just he and Rojo. Even if they did, Keyshawn Vaughn's going to be in the mix. I bet they draft somebody who's in the mix. Leonard might be the best of those three, but is it going to be to the point where he gets an overwhelming amount of touches, even in an offensive like Bruce Arians, where they're not going to run the ball that much anyway? I'm not sure this was the best decision professionally to get his stock where it should be after this season, but personally, which is why he said he made the decision today, obviously it was the right decision, and he values that probably more now than he ever has. He said he'd never been cut before from anything he's ever done. Yeah. And so what that did to him as a person, definitely shook up his world and his perspective. And I think it's deepened who he is as a person. So I appreciated him sharing that. I appreciate him being real about that. I mean, that was obviously a humbling experience for him.
I like Leonard Fournette as a interview more than a football player, to be honest with you. I love his candidness. He's he's a really funny guy, even on social media. Levante David was in Jamaica or somewhere in the islands on vacation last week, and he posted a picture of Levante kind of posing on the beach, and he's got matching like a tropical pair of shorts and a tropical shirt. I'll tweet it out on our Peter Report Twitter in a little while, but Leonard just goes, them shorts are pretty short, aren't they, Levante, or something like that. He was cracking on the length of his shorts, and I know they were. They were like,
he's always joking.
Basketball shorts, but that's just a funny kind of observational humor that this guy has, and he's really good in interviews. You know what I mean? I really enjoy him. I think he's a good football player. I think the Buccaneers could have lived without him, but if you don't have him on your team, well, that is a hole that you've got to fill, and it certainly becomes a pressing draft need now by re-signing him. That gives them more flexibility with what to do. They're not going to have to reach for a running back. I think they reached a little bit with Keyshawn Vaughn last year. I think the guys they wanted went sooner than they did, and I wouldn't call it a panic move, but they're like, we better get one of, somebody. And I believe that they like Keyshawn Vaughn. I don't know that they liked him where they drafted him at specifically, but and production didn't match certainly where he was drafted. But the fact that they've got Leonard Fournette back tells me that, now it doesn't tell me. We know now that just gives them a little bit more flexibility with their draft plans and their draft boards a little bit. Although if my man and your man, and really everybody on Pewter Report is all aboard this. Najee Harris is available at 32. I know you don't draft running backs in the first round. Well, it's the 32nd pick, which is essentially the second round. So stop it with the nonsense. Damn it. He makes this football team a hell of a lot better if he's on this football team. So screw all you haters on the first round running back crap. It's not, I didn't say draft him at number 5. I said draft him at number 32.
Right. And you also said trade up for him, though. That's right.
That was only because we had to do it. Scott came up with the worst round table topic, or maybe you did.
I think both of us. I forget who originally did.
Way to go. But I thought that was it got a lot of good reads and discussion, so it wasn't the worst.
Right.
But
it did get a lot of good discussion.
People were like, you're crazy. And my whole point, and you prefaced yours, you were smarter than me. I put it at the very bottom. Listen, I'm not doing this. I'm not trading up for a running back. But you prefaced it right off the bat with, I would absolutely not. But if I had to, this is what I would do.
Right.
And that's what it was. I would still not trade up for 30 to 31, maybe to 30 possibly, but I'm not moving up to 15 to get a running back. No.
Yeah, obviously Najee Harris, watching his pro day yesterday, watching him catch the ball, then interview. You love the personality. He's just an awesome dude. If you've never heard him interviewed, go check it out, man. James Palmer talked to him after his pro day. He's just a unique dude. Not many people are that comfortable, and not many college kids especially are that comfortable, have that much personality right there on display, at every media session. And so I just enjoy him a lot as a person. He's also gone and talked about some really deep things before during his media availabilities, and I really appreciate that. It just seems like a super mature dude. And so I love that part of it. I love his receiving ability with this weaponry would be pretty crazy. I mean, he was split out wide at Bama. He played in the slot. He ran real routes. He worked all in his time. That was the whole reason he came back. He wanted to be able to basically do everything a wide receiver could do, he was saying. And so it would be a lot like the David Johnson situation for Bruce Arians, being able to have a player like that, I think, which could obviously help the offense. So I am on board the Najee Harris pick. Obviously, depends who else is on the board. One of the reasons I'm on the board is because I just don't love the draft class as a whole, and I'd like to you can hit that pick even if it's a 4 or 5 year player at a position that's less valuable. If you can hit on that pick, I'd like it. There's a lot of players I like that could be there. Jalen Phillips, Landon Dickerson, that have questions health wise. Not character for Dickerson, but there's a lot of players that I like in that regard. But there would be some element of risk. So if it works out, great. But to me, Najee Harris is one of the safer picks in the draft, and I know there's no safe picks in the draft. But
did you see Baldy's breakdown of Dickerson the other day?
I didn't see it. Baldy's
good Lord! And what hurts me is, let's not forget, he was a Florida State player who transferred out, and he was terrible at Florida State, which tells me coaching was the big problem there, which has been a problem with the offensive line at Florida State really since Dalvin Cook was there, honestly. But man, every time I would see this guy, I think how he could have maybe helped Florida State over the last 3 years. But go look up Brian Baldinger, his breakdowns on Twitter and social media, and look for the one of Landon. It is just tremendous. This guy just loves to pick off guys. Like, on a stunt, a guy comes around and doesn't expect. He loves the blind side and just knock the piss out of defensive ends, linebackers that are blitzing. I mean, he's just a man. I mean, he's just a bad man, and you hate to see that knee injury that he had late in the season. But hopefully he's back 100% and doing better. Jamar Jefferson of Oregon State. I just like to throw up these draft questions every once in a while.
I know some people mentioned him yesterday too. I haven't looked at him yet. I'm going to eventually, but I know he's kind of a late. I guess you'd call him a sleeper type of player / prospect. So, he's somebody we'll have to take a look at. There'll be all those day 3 type of running backs. There'll be guys that are on our list now, because especially as the position may have moved down in priority, and we just don't think Najee Harris is going to be there. I mean, again, if he is, awesome, but I don't know that that's going to be the case.
No, I don't think he's going to be there either. I really don't. I'll
tell you who need running backs ahead of him.
You know who is going to be there for you, John?
Who is?
If Najee Harris isn't going to be there, if Travis Etienne isn't going to be there, if Mac Jones is not going to be there for you, you know who's going to be there for you?
Our friends over at BriarGreavesInsurance.com.
They're always there for you. And that's what I love about Briar Greaves. I actually, on my lunch break today, had to run to a property that I have because I had an insurance claim a while back. And Briar Greaves made it so simple for me. I actually had a question when this process was going on. I immediately called. Diana called me. Sam called me, and Briar called me. They all 3 called me to make sure that I had my question answered and got in touch with the right person. And the claim was handled and taken care of. I couldn't get that kind of service if I went to the big box 800 stores, John. You need the personal touch that Briar Greaves brings to the table. And that's why I love dealing with Briar Greaves Insurance. They're my insurance provider for my homeowners. Same for Scott Reynolds. But even if you don't own a home, you probably rent. If you rent, you need renter's insurance. You can get renter's insurance for less than $200 for the entire year. Maybe you own a business. You can get commercial liability insurance, workman's comp. There's a million types of insurances that people have to have. And everybody listening here needs some form of insurance that Briar Greaves services. So please give them a call. It's so important for our sponsors to know that their advertising is being effective. Again, there's no reason not to call Briar Greaves. At the very least, let them compare what you have. You may think that your homeowner's policy is a great rate. Here's what happens, John. You just bought a home. Your insurance premium, your property taxes are all in escrow. It's included in your monthly mortgage payment. So you just know you write that check every month or do a direct draft, however you pay your mortgage payment. And you don't really think about your homeowner's insurance, but you don't realize that year after year, it tends to go up and go up and go up and go up. And it's not, you don't really think about it because it's not a bill where they hand you a homeowner's bill and say, pay this by this date. It's kind of not thought about. So that's why it's important to go with Briar Greaves. At least give them a call. Let them look at your insurance. John, I know you just bought this house. Give Briar Greaves a call. You haven't done that yet. I'm going to keep on you until you do it. Just let them compare and see what you have. They might be able to save you some money. You may be overinsured. You may be underinsured. You may be paying too much money. Give Briar Greaves a call. 813-876-4166. Again, 813-876-4166. I promise you'll be happy that you did. Even if they can't help you with insurance, they're Buccaneer fans, and you guys can chew the fat about your favorite football team.
Love it. Good stuff from Briar Greaves Insurance. As always, somebody mentioned my internet crapping out earlier on the show. That was not my internet. That was the issue the other day. There's a lot of issues. The area that I'm in is being like fully developed. So we were told we'd have connection issues after we were here for a while, and you've noticed probably it's happened from time to time. It was the worst it ever been on Monday show. Yeah. So apologies for that. I meant to mention it yesterday on the show and forgot about it as we got into the show, but apologies for that on Monday's show. Didn't know it was going to be the case. Hadn't been bad all day. And it's really is the worst it ever is when we're going live at times. So as the area gets developed, I live basically in that Riverview area that's being like, there's stuff just everywhere now. It's
why mama? Why mama?
Yeah. So
why
hopefully
mama?
Technically why mama, but literally it's Riverview. I don't know why it's a why mama address, but anyway, yeah. So it'll be, it could be an issue from time to time, but we've also done some things to help improve it. And I think the biggest change, hopefully it's been good today, and hopefully it was good yesterday.
It's really good today. You should probably call Briar Greaves for some internet insurance. They probably offer that.
You're gonna have to talk to my wife about that. She handles all of that kind of stuff, man. That's all that kind of that's outside your boy's wheelhouse for sure.
Well, I mean, how would you have time to handle that, John? You're like a 24-hour machine on football. So do your kids remember your name? I just want to make sure you have it. Okay, good. That's
it though. Only my kids, my wife, and the work. That's it, man. So nobody else knows my name. That's the problem. Toby Valor says, Pewter Report expense, upgrade those bandwidths, man. Yeah, it's not an internet kit. We have a really fast internet here. It's just it's not an internet connection thing. Not in terms of what we pay for in terms of internet anyway.
Are you using, again, I don't know, I'm not a computer guru, but are you using like a modem, a Wi-Fi type deal?
Yeah, brand new modem.
Have you ever tried plugging in and hardwiring directly in?
Can't do that, but that would be the move. Another part of the issue is why there's a lot of connection issues right now. And Stephen Che was actually telling me this, is that there's a lot of connection issues for people in general because everybody's working from home still with COVID, and more people will probably work from home moving forward. So internet service providers are stepping up their game in different parts and trying to figure out where their spots are that are trouble. And so that's also affected things a little bit as well. So yeah, that not often been something I can control. Frustrates me more than it frustrates y'all when it happens, but hopefully we're getting to a place where it can be a little bit more stable than it's been. We had pro days today, Mark, and it was, let me tell you, these guys are moving. And I know it's pro days and they're not the same thing as the combine. And there's no question about that. I don't have any qualms about saying that. But I also like to get excited about players who are really, really good athletes. And we have a lot of great athletes in this class. I don't know what it's going to look like on the large scale with a lot of these guys. How will they be in the NFL? Their tape, it's question marks. But I do think in the NFL side of things, there's a lot of promise in this class and a lot of really good players, and so, or a lot of really good potential with this group. And so it's fun and it's exciting. Obviously, Kyle Pitts did unbelievable things today at his pro day. Ran a 4.44 was what I saw in the 40. And he really didn't have the greatest start either. He kind of swerved at the start and still ran a 4.44. It's craziness. He's plenty fast. Obviously, you didn't need anybody to tell you about his level of athleticism. That's been clear for a while. Weren't quite as many Bucs-related prospects. Some people have talked about Boogie Basham as a potential pro day option. I should say. I don't know that I would say that he is a top Bucs type of pick, but he had a good day for sure. I think he ran like 4.6 something. He had a pretty decent 3-cone. He's like one of those guys, 274 pounds, Mark, and he has kind of like a bad body. Like he's kind of like doesn't really look the part like some of these other guys do, but his tape's just good. He's kind of like Rashad Weaver from Pitt. He just kind of crafty. Then he wins that way. And I think he'll translate okay to the NFL too. My thing with Basham is I'd like to bulk up and move inside maybe. I think that's where he could be at his best.
John, if we're going to look at bad bodies, I mean, look, Shaq Barrett does not have the prototypical body of a guy that had 19 and a half sacks, but somehow he gets it done. So I again, maybe it's because I'm old, but you've got 4 years of tape or 3 years of tape on these guys. And people, I think maybe, I love watching the combine and it's interesting and things like that. But teams fall in love with guys based on what they're doing in short sometimes and ignore the production on the tape. Again, I get it, right? You've got to have some athleticism. But there are guys out there that just didn't test well at the combine who are stars in the NFL. And there's even more guys who are just off the charts at the combine who are just total flops in the league. So I'm an old school guy. I want to see what you do on tape in game situations. If it was just athleticism, then there would be 100 Olympic athletes in the NFL. There would be WWE wrestlers in the NFL. I mean, again, just because you're athletic doesn't mean you're a football player. And the tape shows football players a lot more than pro days and running around in shorts.
Right. And you have to marry the two. Like there are thresholds that have to be hit for athleticism for you to be able to translate to the NFL. The vast majority of the time, there are occasional outliers, but the guys you want to bet on, are guys that kind of fall under certain thresholds. And so it's very helpful information. But like you said, most important thing will always be the tape. It's always good to be athletic. But to me, athleticism, what it does more than anything athletic testing is it takes people off my board. It doesn't move people up my board. If I see a guy on tape and he can't move, it's just, he tests great, but it doesn't happen on the field. I mean, Jordan Willis, Scott mentioned him the other day as a Kansas State guy. He was one of those guys. He just couldn't do it on the field. The Senior Bowl, I think he had 3 sacks in the Senior Bowl game. Every one, the quarterback's at like 12 or 13 yards of depth, and he's just cornering, hitting the guy. Well, I'm like, that's not realistic. In the NFL, you're not going to get that kind of an angle to the pocket. And so for me, I was like, I can't do it. I can't have him on my board. And then he had an unbelievable combine, and everybody's like, oh, he's killing the pre-draft process. He's going up the board. And I was just like, nope, I'm going to keep him right there. I think he was a late 3rd round guy for me. He ended up getting drafted in the same range, I think. And then obviously he's done a bunch of nothing so far in his career. So that was when you hit on where you're like, man, I'm not going to let the athletic testing move me because the tape wasn't there. But if a guy's tape is good and then his testing is very poor and below thresholds, that's when I tend to say, like, all right, you're off. And then if the tape is bad and the testing is bad, that's when I'm probably not drafting you at all.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like Isaac Nauta for Georgia, I kind of like this tape. I could see him, he could block and he could do some things. I thought maybe Isaac Nauta's a guy that I could take in the late 3rd round. So I had him kind of graded in there. Then he ran like a 4.9 40. And I'm like, well, look at all the tight ends in NFL history who've ever run a 4.9 40 at the combine. There's never been a good one. Like the best you're going to get is a number 3 blocking tight end. And so then he was in the 5th, 6th round in my board. And so at that point, you're probably not drafting him. When you get to that range, you're going to like somebody else a little bit more probably. So that's kind of how I assess that stuff with the athletic testing. We'll see. We'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow on the show, by the way. Tomorrow at pewterreport.com, my edge defender rankings for this class are dropping. I'm working through the last couple names now. I'll probably be up late finishing typing it out tonight. And those rankings will be up early in the morning for you guys to take a look at.
Do you want to announce your special guest for next week, or are you going to hold off on that?
I can announce my special guest for next week because I think we can count on him. He does have a huge project that's coming up this week, and why he couldn't be on the show this week. So tomorrow we'll talk about my edge defender rankings on the show. But next week, next Thursday, we've got Dane Brugler from The Athletic lined up to come on the show, and we are excited about that.
That'll be
Dane
really
is he's working on the draft guide this week that he has come out, The Beast. If you don't know it, check it out. If you're not subscribed to The Athletic, you got to do it, man.
Should we announce?
Can't go through the draft without that thing. It's the best. So he's working on that this week. It's going to come out. He's editing it. It's going to come out. It'll be mid next week, and then we'll have him on the show Thursday to talk about his guide, but also to talk about the quarterback class. That's actually what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about all the Kellen Monds, the Davis Mills. We're going to talk about those guys, and then day 3 and undrafted free agents, sleeper, toolsy type of quarterbacks that everybody's hoping could be like the next Tom Brady or whatever, and see if the Bucs can develop that guy.
Those happen a lot. Should we announce next Tuesday's special guest, John?
If it's locked in, it's locked in.
Locked in, man. It is locked in, and we can count on him. Mr. Reliable himself, number 84, near and dear to your heart. Mr. Cam Braid is going to join us at 4:00 next Tuesday. Spoke with Cam yesterday. He's all about it. He's excited to do it and to say hi to the Pewter Report readers and listeners and viewers out there. So Cam Braid's going to be on Tuesday with us. And as of now, he's still a Buccaneer. Are we gonna hit him hard with that question, John? Or are we just gonna go right to it and be like, hey, dude?
Listen,
Tuesday. What are they gonna do?
Tuesday is Britt's birthday, so I will not be on that show.
That's right.
That'll be you and Scott. But I very much hope that you ask him about his situation with the team and all of that, and taking a pay cut last year, and whether that was a hard decision for him. As you know, obviously, he'd be a number 3 tight end, and I want to know what his perspective on that is.
I remember Cam when the Buccaneers re-signed him to that lucrative deal a couple years ago. I remember being at the press conference at one Buccaneer place, and he and I were just talking. And I remember I asked him, I said, he's a Harvard grad, right? Mm-hmm. You figure people that get out of Harvard, their average starting salary is, I don't know, a couple $100,000, maybe more than if you went to, say the University of Florida, where you're going to be making probably $9 an hour at McDonald's when you graduate from that awful institution. But a place like Harvard, certainly you would expect. But I jokingly said to him, how many years would you have to have worked with a Harvard degree in the regular field to make what you're going to make in one season playing football? And he just laughed. He goes, I don't know, man. A lot.
Yeah.
You talk about a guy I'm not saying this guy's not just, I'm just content being in the NFL. But he has to probably pinch himself every once in a while, because growing up, while he was a great athlete, he went to Harvard. He didn't go to Alabama. He didn't go to Florida State. He didn't go to Oregon. He didn't go to University of Florida. He went to Harvard, not known for putting out great NFL talent other than Ron Fitzpatrick, of course. But bottom line is the thing, he's making $6 million. Oh, wait, I had to take a $2 million pay cut. I'm only making $4.5 million. Again, how many years, if he would have graduated with a degree in engineering per se, or American literature from Harvard, how many years would he have had to work what he's going to make in just one season playing in the NFL? So Cam's just a good, humble guy. You know what I mean? He's a multimillionaire, but he's just a down-to-earth guy. I know he's been at different Pewter Report events. A lot of our readers and listeners have met him before. Just a good dude. So I'm excited. I hope he sticks around with his football team. I think he will. I think I think they saw the value in having a Cam Braid last year when OJ Howard went down.
It sure seems like they're trying to make that the last resort, man, letting him go. And at this point, I don't know that it's necessary. They can, again, that was how much money you'd want to push down the road rather than cutting into his $6.5 million. It'll be really interesting to see if he stays at $6.5 million. That would just be crazy.
I can't imagine.
It's a lot of money for a number 3 tight end. That's just. But if you could do it,
but Cam and his agent are going to say, "Well, I was the number 2 tight end for most of the year last year." You know what I mean?
And the Bucs are going to say, "Hey, take this pay cut or hit the road."
and again, he's just, I've mentioned it. If you follow him on social media, you know that he's engaged. He's built a house here in South Tampa, or we've renovated one. Right. He loves it in the Tampa Bay area. He's good friends with his team. A lot of guys on this team. Kane, go away, says if OJ could ever stay on the field, he'd be better than Gronk and Braid, in my opinion.
Okay, easy on Gronk. My goodness. Did people watch Gronk play last year? I honestly wonder if Gronk and Brady connected on all those throws where Gronk was open and he was the only dude for most of the season. Brady couldn't hit down the field. What people's he would have had a 900-yard season. I'm going to cut, after the draft, I'm going to cut all those plays where Gronk is wide open behind the defense and Brady misses him for huge gains and touchdowns. I'm going to add up the yardage. I'm going to say if Brady would have hit these passes, and everybody knows how I feel about Brady, so I'm obviously not trying to slander him. But if Brady would have hit these couple passes, and sometimes it was protection was an issue, and there was one in the Saints game where protection was the issue. If he hits all these passes, we're talking about Gronk and Holt. Like, that's the kind of production that was on the table for him. And he barely even did anything the first 4 weeks of the season. So I don't know. Gronk to me is still a premier tight end in the league. I'm not saying he's tier 1 with Kittle and Kelsey right now, but he's top of tier 2.
I think the question is, can OJ be in that top tier 1 level if he were able to stay healthy and figure things out? Because, I mean, from an athletic standpoint, I'm going to go back to when Trevor was with us and he did a lot of draft work on OJ Howard. And I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because he's a genius. But we thought at that point, he doesn't get out of the top 15. There's no way he makes it down to number 19 for the Buccaneers. But Trevor did a lot of work on Gronk on OJ. And his athlete, you talk about athleticism. I mean, the guy is a terrific athlete. And, his ability to get out of his stance, a 3-point stance, and into a pass route was one of the quickest that Trevor had ever seen from a college prospect. And his ability to get into the pass route and his quickness and those kind of things. Now, for whatever reason, he hasn't put it all together. We've yet to see OJ Howard at his top, I don't think. Maybe we have. Maybe it is that doesn't finish a season. Maybe it is a 550-yard guy, but athletic ability tells me there's more to that than what we've seen so far from OJ Howard. I don't know that he's, like you say, in the Kelsey Kittle range, but we don't know because we just haven't seen him.
Well, I think what we have seen him when he's been on the field has indicated way more that he's very talented and could be very good than not. I mean, that's my take on it anyway. I mean, to me, when I watch what he did in 2018, he's one of the best tight ends in the league in 2018. I know the Bucs weren't a good team, but he was good, and especially considering everything else that was going on there at the time. I mean, he had a good season. And then 2019, he did not start the season well. He wasn't as ready as he should have been. That Bruce Arians offense, he said it himself, is one of the hardest in the league for tight ends. It totally changed what he was doing, the amount that they ask you to block and pass protect, and not just block, but ISO block defensive ends and figure that out pre-snap based on alignments and when they go to the jumbos and all of that. Like, it's a lot for a tight end. So, he wasn't ready for that. And he started 2019 slow, and then he got hurt in the middle of the season. And then he was good again at the end of the season. He was making plays down the field. And then this past season, beginning of 2020, he's making plays. Like, he was great. Brady loves him. If you don't trust Brady on it, I mean, Brady thinks he could be a beast for them. And yes, he has to stay healthy. I get that. To me, that's not a knock on OJ. That's just the way luck has gone in his situation. So we'll see what happens with him. Charlie's saying I'm trying to trash Cam Brate. I don't know where I said that. I just said it would be unusual for him to take a pay cut and then be at a higher rate this season than he was last year when they asked him to take a pay cut, especially given how high the Bucs or tight the Bucs cap situation is. I didn't say anything trashing him. I praised Brate actually for up and down for the playoffs and how important he was in that playoff rate. I mean, with OJ getting hurt, but you can only do if guys get hurt so often. I mean, like, you could do that with every position, but at the end of the day, you have to figure out where you want to spend that kind of money and spend in what's Gronk. I mean, Gronk, if he gets to 10 mil and then what's OJ 6 and then it Cam's 6.5, your number 3 tight end making $6.5 million is just bonkers in today's NFL. It's just crazy. He's only going to get on the field for like 10 snaps for everybody's healthy.
More than half the starters, tight end ones in the league, aren't making $6.5 million.
And your number 3 tight end has to be a blocker. Like, when you go 3 tight end sets, you want that guy to be able to block, and that's not really what Brate does. So I've literally said too that Brate would start most other teams. I mean, that's how devoid the tight end position is around the league. That's why I said, like, it really on paper it makes a ton of sense for Brate to be somewhere else from his perspective. But he loves Tampa and he loves being here, and if that personal part of it matters, just like I said with Leonard, I'm just trying to say, professionally speaking, those guys probably had opportunities to do more and make more money elsewhere. Now, if Brate doesn't have to take a pay cut, I'll be wrong on that. We'll see how that all shakes out by the time that the Benedict John is back. Known Cameron Brate hater, Rundack says. Cam Brate hater. I guess that's me at this point. I don't know.
I think he meant Benedict Arnold, right?
Or he did, yeah.
Arnold, yeah.
Maybe he did. I think he did. He's trying to use my first name.
Ren's been dipping into the grandpa's cough syrup a little bit already earlier today. He claimed in an earlier chat thing that he could beat OJ in a foot race today. Maybe if OJ's Achilles is still bad, but no,
it's not.
I'm
no chance, Fred.
I'm taking OJ on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Tanner M said, "Bros, don't forget Tanner H is going to the Pro Bowl, baby. 4 good tight ends on this roster. Hey, they really trying to make Tanner Hudson a thing, man. I'll give the Bucs credit.
Gave him an opportunity to catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl,
and he blew it.
Awful route, John. I will say, Ren, you would have ran a better route than than Tanner did in that Super Bowl. That was a bad route.
Agreed. Yes, that was a frustrating moment in the Super Bowl. I really want to see him like hit 40. That would have been just a cool, 40.
Yeah.
Scoring 40 points in the Super Bowl. They could have too, very easily.
Yeah.
Anyway, no reason to revisit that now. Bucs Time says at least John likes AB back to the team now. I don't know what that means, but AB on the field has always been a player very, very, very important to any team that he's been on. So that hasn't changed to me. I mean, I think he's still a really good football player. It's the other stuff that you get bogged down by in that situation. Michael Henderson wants to know, do we know that if they are reworking any more contracts to free up cap? Don't think it's the plan right at this second. But I think it's probably on their docket if they need to be able to do so. They have got
they know who the potential targets are if they need to do that, and they've had some preliminary discussions. But as of right now, it's really full speed ahead in draft mode for everybody in that front office right now.
Right.
I mean, certainly if somebody were to become available that they thought could help the football team, they're not going to be against signing it, but they're not actively out there looking for guys to sign. I spoke to somebody last night, and it's full speed ahead right now in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's the folks. And really, I mean, extension for Carlton Davis is unlikely anyway at this point, but it's probably not even in the cards or make sense for either side, but also it wouldn't clear any cap space really. Extension for Jensen could be interesting, but I think they might be willing to wait it out and see how that goes with Ryan Jensen. What kind of money is he going to get on the free agent market? If he got an extension now, you might be paying him something similar to what you're paying him now, and maybe as a free agent you wouldn't. So we'll have to see how all of that goes. And I think most of the other players, Godwin's the guy they'll keep trying to probably work something out with, but with a lower cap hit this year, so they wouldn't need to clear space for him necessarily. But everybody else, I think they're pretty comfortable with riding into the season and saying we don't need to extend anybody else right now, which is probably the right perspective to have. Like I said, Carlton's the one guy. Carlton and Godwin will be the focus next offseason, but not much space to clear with Carlton. If you extended him now, he probably wouldn't be interested in that either right now. So I think they'll stand pat. I think we'll see. Jason Pierre-Paul is another one in season. I could see if he's playing well, playing healthy, slap a year on in season, keep him around. I could see something like that happening too. So we'll see how that process goes with that. Other pro day information to wrap up the show today. I don't think there were any other really Bucs related targets in the pro day, but one guy does have a pro day coming up that Scott and I discussed at length today, Mark, and he's Peyton Turner from Houston. Scott and I were kind of going back and forth on him today. Scott kind of wants him to replace Will Golston someday, be a 5 technique. I kind of want him to see him play on the edge. His pro day's coming up. He's a guy that if you're a Bucs fan and you're in the chat and you like checking out these prospects, there's 2 names I'll throw out there for you to check out that I haven't seen many people mention. Check out Peyton Turner. I don't even know if the Bucs are his best fit necessarily. Check out Peyton Turner. He's going to be higher on my edge rankings tomorrow. A little sneak peek. Going to be higher on my edge rankings tomorrow than you've probably seen him other places. Along with Peyton Turner, when you're looking at linebackers and you're saying who could be a linebacker of the future for this team, Levante David, 2-year deal. It wouldn't be necessarily a priority to get somebody in to replace him right now, but it could be eventually. There's a Purdue linebacker, Derek Barnes, who I really like in this class and is not getting much talk. You can't even find him on the Draft Network or Pro Football Focus's simulators or unless they just put him in on Pro Football Focus maybe. But he's a guy that I think is going to go in the top 100. Let's put it that way conservatively for now. And people aren't even talking about him. He has a lot of traits you want at the linebacker position: range, physicality, tackles. So those 2 guys, Purdue linebacker Derek Barnes and Houston edge rusher Peyton Turner, who was at the Senior Bowl, 6'5", 270, big, long, lean, high-cut guy, but very physical, very aggressive. And I think he could be kind of like an interior, exterior rusher that help the team out in a couple different spots. So those are your 2 draft prospect names to have on your radar. And Peyton Turner's pro day, I believe, is April 9th, I want to say. So it's coming up, and we'll see what the numbers are look like from that one.
John, I just found our roundtable topic for Sunday. This is a good one from Long Lost Glazer. Would you trade our 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round pick to move up for another 3rd this year? Long shots as is, and this roster is loaded, quality or quantity. Wow, that's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it is an interesting topic. I'll give a sneak peek into what I say. I know that the Bucs roster is loaded, but that changes quickly, and I want to get as much young talent in as possible. And if you get young talent in, it means guys like Anthony Nelson get pushed out the door, or Javon Hagan get pushed out the door, or whoever CB4 is, or Herb Miller gets pushed out the door, or Josh Wells or Brad Seaton get pushed out the door. That's good. That's a good thing. It does, yes, if the Bucs had to play today, they'd probably be the most NFL ready team in the league. But I want that young talent. So in a draft like this, where I think there's some good prospects, but I don't think there's a lot of great ones, I'm trying to get more picks. I'm trying to get trade back and get more picks, to be honest, and because reality is most of these guys probably won't hit. So get volume, and your chance of hitting on somebody increases. And so that's
John. It's like my dad told me when I was young and I was dating, and he said, "Look, even as ugly as you are, if you ask 10 girls out, 3 are going to say yes. So just start asking."
Was he right?
It was about 2.6 was the actual number when I broke it down. But the bottom line is, I mean, it's a ridiculous analogy, but it's really not. I mean, you just keep picking. I mean, look, he did it. Jason Light did it with cornerbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And safeties. I mean, Justin Evans and Jordan Whiteheads and the Winfield Juniors. I mean, eventually you're going to find your 2. Same thing with cornerback. Okay, MJ Stewart didn't work out, but Carlton Davis did, and so on and so forth. So I'm with you. And you know what? Sometimes those late round draft picks end up being a special team standout, like Ryan Smith, by the way, that we lost yesterday.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Ryan. Not really rest in peace. I love
He's
Ryan
on the
Smith.
Chargers,
One of my favorite guys, man. Yeah, sorry about that. But one of my favorite guys in the locker room. Ryan was just a cool dude. And he was a guest on What's Cooking a couple years ago. So
nice.
Anyway.
I don't know anything about Ryan because he didn't even play a defensive snap, so I didn't watch him at all. Honestly. I understand. To be honest, I cut corners on special teams. I need to watch special teams over the summer and figure out if he was good or not. Pro Football Focus says he has not been a very good special teams player. They said Andrew Adams was a very good special teams player. Well, Ryan Smith played a lot of snaps, so I don't know.
Last year was not his best year of special teams, but he had a couple years there where, as a kick cover guy, he was outstanding. And he was suspended in 2019, I believe, for the first 4 games, and the special teams unit really, really suffered. Played much better when he came back in there. He kind of stabilized things. But you're right, 2020. I agree with Pro Football Focus on that. Wasn't his best year. He didn't really see a lot of big impact plays from him like we'd seen in years past. But anyway, again, he was a late, a 4th round, I believe, draft pick, something like that, maybe 5th round. You've got to have those guys too. They've got to be there. So I'm with you. I was joking. That's not going to be our roundtable topic. Thank you, Long Lost. If you come up with something else, though, we're always interested in you guys coming up with topics for us, because our brains tend to melt, certain points during the year. We get overwhelmed, and so. Any suggestions? We don't mind. Hit us up on Twitter if you've got a story suggestion. What the hell? We don't care. I don't even know what I'm going to write about for the hook tomorrow yet, John.
That's right. Yep.
No idea.
Ty will say, Ty asked, John, will you discuss Jamie Newman, obviously, as a late round option? Yes, when Dane Brugler comes on. So we have Cam Braid on Tuesday as a guest coming on the Pewter Report podcast, 4 p.m. And then we have Dane Brugler coming on. That will be a night show with Dane, by the way. I think 8 p.m. Eastern. We're still stabilizing the time, depending on his kids. But it'll be a night show with Dane on that Thursday, probably 8 p.m. Eastern is what we're looking at. And he will come on to discuss Kellen Mond, Jamie Newman, Kyle Trask, and who else am I forgetting? The other Davis Mills from Stanford. Those 4. Then we will talk about late/undrafted free agent, sleeper, developmental, number 3 quarterbacks with a small chance of working out, but that every team wants to have on their roster. And the Bucs may have on their roster just because Ryan Griffin might not be back. And so we'll discuss all of that on the show with Dane. So it's going to be good to get his perspective on things as well. Then we'll have Brandon Thorne coming up to talk offensive line too sometime in the next couple of weeks. We will get Trevor back in here before the draft. I know most people probably assume that, but that will happen. We have spoken, and we will set a date and get him in right before the draft to talk about some things. So it's going to be a good time to be following the Pewter Report podcast. Go over to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Hit subscribe, hit the bell to get the notifications for when we go live. Stay up to date on all of the different things that we will discuss on this podcast, and that we discussed about the Bucs as well. So until then, thanks so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.